welcome to Royally Shay. This is another one of those videos where it's just kind of information dumping on you about my world that I've created. This video is going to be about the title ships in my kingdoms because they do it a tiny bit different than some of the other royal Let's Plays that I've seen. I did borrow a lot from Mira Ray, once again, the OG queen. Um, Shout out to her. However, I did make some tweaks and stuff of my own. So we're gonna mostly be bouncing between Oasis Springs and Willow Creek because those are my two main families. Also, they are the two biggest kingdoms population wise, so they have the most examples of what I'm going to be talking about. So let's go ahead and start from the top. First thing I want to say is the heir inherits the title. All right, which is very similar to Mira Ray's thing. The heir will inherit the title, and the rest will stay as whatever they were born as, except for in the case of king, prince, crown royal, because obviously all three of those can shift upward once somebody dies. And Oasis Springs is going to be a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Once Queen Ruby passes away, Prince Laz will become the king, and his crown royal son will become the prince. In this situation, everybody would be moved up if there was more siblings involved. So far, they've only had one kid for each generation, so there's not a whole lot there. Um, so if Prince Laz had siblings, he would become king, and those prince and princesses would now be moved to archdukes and duchesses, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And his crown royal children, if there was more of them, would all be moved to prince and princesses. All right. So that's the one exception in that case. So starting from the top, we have our kings and our queens. And I did that backwards. The reigning monarch will always be number one in the social hierarchy. Then it will be their royal partners second, but they are still both at the top of the food chain, as so to speak. Below them will be your prince, the heir, of course, which will be the oldest child, regardless of gender, will be the heir, and that's across on all of my kingdoms. Then it will be whoever the heir marries, which will be prince or princess consort, whatever their name is. And then, of course, all the other royal siblings, which at that point would be prince and princesses. When they die, when the king and queen die, that's when you get the next part of the social hierarchy, which kind of is on par with the archdukes and duchesses, only slightly below the crown royal because they are not, in terms of succession, the crown royal will come before the archdukes and duchesses. But crown royals are the children of prince and princesses who are in line for the throne. Everybody else we're going to get to. So our archdukes and duchesses are always going to be the siblings of the current reigning monarch, as well as whoever they are married to. So in this case, we can go to, let's look at Archduchess's house, because there's a lot of people in her house. So she is the sister of the current reigning monarch. So their children are viscounts. All right. This is one of our few exceptions, as well as the inheritance thing. Gregory II here will not become an archduke because he will never be genetically the sibling of the person who the king or queen. He is their cousin. So he will take on, once his mother dies, the position of duke. And of course his wife, duchess. Also, the married in, let's say King Jasper had a sibling, his siblings are not archdukes and duchesses because he is the royal partner, not the ruling monarch, and so they will only be dukes and duchesses as well. So back to the archdukes and duchesses, we have their children are viscounts, and then the children of a viscount is a count or countess. All right. Below them, so once these children are grown and have their own kids, their kids will be marquises and marchionesses. So to see that title, we will have to go to Willow Creek, and Bella Goth here is a marchioness because she married a marquis of Willow Creek, which is Mortimer. However, this is a slightly special case. They don't take away your titles just because your husband or wife passed away. But if your husband or wife was the actual person in the line of succession, so she married into the royal family. Mortimer Goth was the royal. So since he has passed away, his next of kin, his child that is next in line for his position, took his title already. So that's why Marquise Luciano is already a marquise, even though his sister is still a baroness. And that's the way they're going to be for the rest of their lives. He will always be the marquise, she will always be the baroness. His children will be baron and baronesses, except for the heir, who of course take his spot. And her children will be earls and earlesses, and of course the heir will take her position as baroness. After earls, so it's going to go marquise, baron, earl. Once we get to earls, we have Earl Travis here. He's the one in the actual line of succession. Then you just have lords and ladies. Lords and ladies is anybody below an earl. So that's an advisor if they don't have any other titleship tied to them. That's the knights, wives, and children if they don't have anything else tied to them. And below a lady is nothing. So Lady Nicole here is the youngest of his children. So Lady Elizabeth, when Travis dies, will become Earless Elizabeth, but her sister will always just be Lady Nicole. If Lady Nicole has any children, they will not have titles. The oldest can take on the title of lady or lord, depending on their gender, but that is it. They no longer get titles that far away from the royal line of succession. Couple of things to note. I did make some things up and mix some things up. So I liked having various levels. I just like the name Marquise as a title. So Marquise and Marchionesses. I know that's not part of like British royal lineage. I'm pretty sure that's French if I read correctly. Um, so I know I've mixed in different European titleships together. And also, if we look at this word earless, that is a completely made up word that I made up because I didn't like the fact that earls' partners, female partners, did not have a special title just like every other title had. Every other title that I found online had a matching set of names except Earl. Earl was just old lady, and I didn't like that personally. So I made up a word, and they're called Earlesses now. So that is the entire line of succession, king to queen. Oh, and of course, the only ones that change is Queen Mother, Queen Father for those kingdoms, like Willow Creek here, that give up their crown before they die. Well, if they give up their crown before they die, then they become Queen Mother, Queen Father, or King Mother, King Father, depending on who the actual ruling monarch is. So it's Queen Mother and Queen Father, or King Mother, King Father. Then it's, of course, the ruling king and queen, then the ruling prince and princess. Once again, if this was like Oasis Springs and they were still alive and in power, then this guy right here would be a crown royal. From there, you have your. Sorry, do we have any archdukes and duchesses over here? Oh, we do. So we have Archduke Clinton here and Archduke Ivy. Clinton is the actual one of royal lineage. Notice how he has no children in his name. That is because all of his children have been married off someplace else. So if they don't have anybody to take on their mantle, that's just the end of that. So, for example, where did his children go? Abby actually, I think is still in a domain that belongs. No, she married somebody from Del Sol. So she's a part of the Del Sol community now. She's over here. She married a count. Um, so that'll just be the end of that part of the lineage tree. There won't be someone to take that mantle. However, if we go to Oasis Springs, we can continue down the line. Archduke and Archduchess, then of course dukes and duchesses would come after that, then our viscounts, and then our counts and countesses, then we have our marquises, then our barons, then our earls, and then our lords and ladies. Also, just real quick, knights will also be referred to as sir. The acting knight would be referred to as sir, his wife a lady, and their children lords and ladies. But once again, anything below a lord or lady is absolutely nothing. I hope this wasn't too fast or too much. If you have any questions, please comment down below. If there's any clarification that's needed, let me know. I am more than happy to clarify anything because I know it's kind of a lot and it's kind of difficult. But this is the best way it makes sense in my brain to do it because I do think it's realistic to have multiple dukes and duchesses, multiple marquises and barons and baronesses, and things of that nature, along with the regular people, because there's still regular townies roaming about in my game that people could potentially marry. They don't always have to marry a royal. Um, I will say a couple of caveats, a couple of more things where it's exceptions. We go over here to Oasis Springs again. A couple of times, though, there has been marriage downwards, especially twice now, 3 times now for the ladies. No, just twice. One of them is Viscountess Sky. So certain titles like Viscount and Archduke, it's kind of assumed in the royal community that if you have that sort of title, then you are tied to somebody that is directly in the royal lineage because of the way it is set up. So because she married someone who was only a lord, and was only a lord because of the job his parents have, which is advisor, not because he is related to anybody in the royal bloodline, but without wanting to 100% knock her all the way down from a viscount to a lady, they made her. And same thing happened with the other one that this happened to. She was also a viscountess uh, in a different place. So they knocked her down one to a countess, and then they brought him up to being a count. That actually, Abby, the girl we just looked at, that's the second girl it happened to. So he got a higher elevation, social standing, by marrying somebody, even though they were from a different kingdom. It got him up. He would have gone higher, all the way to a viscount, if they had decided to move to the kingdom that she was originally from. So if they had stayed in Newcrest, which is where she's from, she'd have stayed a viscountess, and he would have become a viscount. Same with the Willow Creek one. She would have stayed a viscountess, and he would have become a viscount. However, in both cases, they chose to move. She chose to move specifically because, like I said, in this kingdom, the advisor titleship is passed down through the generations. So he is the next advisor in line for the throne once his mother passes away. So he cannot leave unless he wanted to pass it down to his little sister. Um, but she is already an elder, and so it would take her a while to be able to take on the mantle anyways. So once again, if you have any questions, let me know. I didn't really want this to be a whole long video, but it turned into anyways because I guess I'm rambling. But anyways, peace out, toodles, comment, subscribe, like, do the things. Toodles.